So hi, I'm Jon.
And I'm Jo.
Welcome to our podcast, Extraordinariness,
where we explore the motivations behind ordinary people's extraordinary accomplishments. So do you want to start with introducing yourself?
Well, I don't need to introduce myself because we've been doing a podcast for months, so everyone's going to know who I am.
Everyone knows who you are.
Yeah.
But tell us what you've done.
Okay, so I'm Jon Harman, and I have 3 weeks ago just come back from completing Marathon des Sables.
Amazing. So what I want to know, Jon, is tell us how the idea came about. Like, why did you decide to do this particular event, and what was the sort of the catalyst into making that decision?
So it's always been on my radar. In fact, ever since school, we both went to the same school, and we had a teacher, and I remember him telling me about it, which was Mr. Fox, who was in charge of the CCF. And I remember him telling me about it probably age 15. And so it's always been something that's just sort of totted around in the back of my memory. And then, so in March last year, that would be March 2021, I had a recurrence of an injury that I'd had 12 years prior that meant I was in hospital having surgery. And the surgery is abdominal surgery. It's called a laparotomy, which is about a 8-inch incision right up the centre of your abdomen. And it leaves you feeling pretty sorry for yourself. Basically, you sort of have to start walking again, and to begin with you can walk about 10 metres and then you gradually build up. So it's feeling very unfit for someone who's used to...
I was going to say, for someone like you, and having known you for so long, that would not go down well.
Yeah, so I thought I needed a bit of a challenge, and it was a kind of a perfect storm, really, in that something had happened at work that meant I had a little bit more time than usual, and this was, all COVID-wise. Mm-hmm. So there's the time, and then also a bunch of holidays that had been cancelled, again because of COVID. And Marathon des Sables is not a cheap event. And so having had some holidays cancelled, it kind of meant that there was some... So all of a sudden, this perfect storm kind of came around, and my wife said... I don't know if she was half joking, but she said, if you need a challenge, you should do Marathon des Sables. So I went on the internet and paid for the deposit there and then, thinking, I'll do this before she changes her mind.
I was going to say, you got permission now.
So that was the start of the road. So at this point, I couldn't walk for half an hour, let alone run.
So how many months out from the event were you at this point of signing up?
Yes, that was about 12 months.
So a year to bring yourself back to full fighting fitness. Yeah. And then beyond to be able to then... Yeah.
So I gave myself 3 months to recover, to do the physio, basically. Mm-hmm. And then 3 months to sort of work my basic fitness back up, which actually comes back really quickly. And then 6 months to really drill down on the training for it.
So not everyone's going to know what the Marathon des Sables is. So describe the event. What is it? Where is it?
So it is a... pretty famous event that takes place in southeastern Morocco in the Sahara Desert. It's 250 kilometres spread over 5 days. You're actually out in the desert for longer than that. You're out in the desert for about 9 days, but 5 running days. And the stages are traditionally broken down into something like 35 kilometres, 38 kilometres, then another 30 kilometres, and then a long day, which is usually somewhere between 80 and 90 kilometres. If you finish that day, you get a rest day the next day, and then the last day is a marathon, so 42 kilometres in the desert. It's a self-sufficient race, so you have to carry everything that you need for the whole week, with the exception of a tent, which is provided for you. You get a goat's hair Berber tent, which is like a blanket held up by sticks.
Sounds luxurious.
Yeah, very luxurious. And you do get a rug. You sleep on a rug as well. And you get water given to you at checkpoints. But apart from that, everything you need, toilet roll, food, snacks, clothes, you have to carry on your back.
Wow. So what were the temperatures, and how much did they vary from sort of kicking off in the morning to when you were putting your head down at night?
Well, that was actually the problem this year, was nighttime. I think the event was quite early this year, so like high heats wasn't the problem. It was probably, I think the still air temperature, measured inside a tent out of the sun was about 30 degrees, but it certainly felt more like 35, 36 at the height of the day when you're running. But actually, it's so dry that you don't, when you get off a plane somewhere hot and sticky, you instantly feel hot and sticky. It's so dry that you don't really, you sweat, but you don't notice it on your skin because it evaporates.
Just because it dries straight.
It just evaporates straight away.
That's crazy.
But at night it was really cold. So I think it probably went down to 2 or 3 degrees.
Wow.
So that was probably one of the bigger challenges. And then the wind this year was pretty windy as well.
Okay. So talk me through, arriving, setting off day one. Were you nervous? Did you know you had it? Was there any doubt?
So actually, and everyone I spoke to shared this, the single biggest fear that we all had was the COVID test 24 hours before going. Because if you failed the COVID test, you obviously couldn't go. And then all that training that you've done.
And it was at a time where it was pretty rife, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I'd been doing my heat acclimation training in the sauna at the local gym. And anytime anyone else walked in, I'd been sort of giving them the eyes, get out of the sauna, you give me COVID. So that was probably the biggest fear. But you get a charter flight for, all the British contingent. There are about 360 British athletes. It's about 1,100 athletes competing.
Oh, so it's pretty global then.
It's a big event. Americans, Italians, French. The oldest competitor was an Italian man who was 85.
And did he complete?
He did, yeah.
That's amazing.
So you get a charter flight in, you then get a bus journey down, and you arrive into the camp, and you have a couple of nights in the desert, because you have a day where they do technical checks. They check all your equipment, your bags, making sure you have the minimum amount of food that you've got to take with you.
And with this level of sort of, could that qualify you for being disqualified?
I think worst case, you could be disqualified. Otherwise, you can get time penalties. So like maybe a 4-hour time penalty if you don't have your compass or...
Oh, really?
I think this year there were 3 people who... One of the other requirements is that you turn up with an ECG taken in the last month. And then that's read by a doctor. Okay. And if they see something they don't like, they go to the chief cardiologist. And I think 3 people had something picked up on their ECG that meant that they weren't allowed to compete.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, it could have been life-saving for them. So they were told to go home and...
Well, yeah.
But yeah, again, I think for most people, that's obviously not a worry at that stage. But yeah, so you could get to that point and then not even start.
Okay, that would be pretty heart-wrenching.
Yeah. The rest of that day sort of dragged out a little bit, and 3 of my tent mates, who were ex-Royal Engineers, decided that they'd go for a hike.
Right? The day before?
Yeah. And it was a big hike, and I remember them turning around and they said, guys, we're going to walk up to the top of that hill over there, do you want to come? And I remember looking at them thinking, surely he's joking. Anyway, they set off. About 3 hours later, they came back, and one of them had, you wear sand gaiters in the desert, which are like parachute silk that's velcroed onto the top of your shoes.
So sand doesn't go in your shoes.
Sand doesn't go in your shoes. And on this hike, the day before the event even started, he'd managed to rip one of it. Big tear. Fortunately, we had a chap in our tent who was just an absolute legend, who immediated whisked out a sewing kit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a patch of parachute silk and some super glue, and proceeded to fix them for him.
So how many to a tent?
So 8 people in a tent. Some people turn up knowing each other. I knew nobody. I turned up in first point.
And was it the same 8 people to each tent each night?
Yeah, so those are your tent mates, and they kind of become your family while you're there. And you're eating together, you're doing everything together, basically.
So tell us about. So can you remember the names of all?
Yeah, of course I can. Yeah. There's we had Rory, Dougie, Barry. They were the ex-Royal Engineers. They were in a team. I like
that. They sound like they should be in a cartoon.
They should be in a cartoon. Yeah. Absolute gentlemen to a piece. And then there were 3 other friends. So we had Chris, Ross, and Dom, and then Pete, who also knew the sappers, as they were called, the Royal Engineers, who was a Australian chap who definitely carried the most amount of food.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
Pete the Rations became his nickname. Pete had more food than anyone had ever seen. But they were absolute just legends. And, everyone helps, everyone gets through it, and you sort of work as a team. They've truly become a real family as the week goes on.
Have you seen them since you've been back?
Haven't yet. I know there's a walk planned, and we're planning to have a curry. I think we put that in the diary straight away.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I'll hopefully stay in touch with them. I know that there's currently talk about trying to row the Atlantic or something, but having slept in a tent with 2 of them who are weapons-grade snorers for a week, I'm not sure about sharing a boat.
Oh, that's amazing. And are they all from around here?
All across the country, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All from England, and all English speaking. That tends to be how they put the tents together, make sure everyone speaks the same language.
That's pretty special.
Yeah. So
you passed the COVID test. All your kit was signed off, ready for action.
Yeah. So you have your final night in the desert, and then we woke up to just a glorious sunrise, like you wouldn't believe. So you kind of wake up about, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning. Sunrise is about 6:30. And as you're waking up, the Berbers are already taking the tents down while you're still in them. Because they need to pack them all up and they need to get them to the next checkpoint to rebuild the bivouac.
And are they all in vehicles to do this?
Yeah, they've got, but obviously they've got to put them all back up. So you're sort of still in your tent as the tent comes down, packing all of your kit away. And you have breakfast, sort yourself out, and then head out to the start line. And the start line's quite special. There's sort of a fairly long talk from Patrick Bauer, who started the event, who's a Frenchman, but everything he says is then translated into English, so it takes quite a long time to get everywhere. And then traditionally the race is started with AC/DC's Highway to Hell, which is probably quite appropriate. And I'd say the organisation of the event is amazing, and that shows by the fact that the most poorly orchestrated part of the whole thing was the timing of the helicopter and AC/DC's Highway of Hell with the start.
Oh, really? So
yeah, I think they wanted the chorus to go at the same time as the start, as the same time as the helicopter circled overhead, but it didn't work out.
Oh, okay.
We ended up standing there for 1.5 renditions of Highway to Hell. But if that's the biggest complaint, But it's amazing, the real energy. Everyone's sort of buzzing to get going. No one really knows what to expect.
So I'm just trying to visualise this. I don't know anything about the event. Is it well marked? Can you kind of clearly see where you're meant to be going, or is it is there a sense of you having to navigate your way through to the next sort of?
So when we arrived in Morocco and you're on the bus, you're given what's called the road book, which has got like hand-drawn maps of the route. Okay. And like there are bearings, so you can use your compass, but I mean everyone's compass is tucked deep inside their bag. And the course is marked with I think a biodegradable pink spray paint on rocks, and rocks will be piled up. And so you can generally see where you're going. Unless, to be honest with you, unless you're at the very front, you can nearly always see someone in front of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does everyone go in one big wave, or
apart from 2 of the days, everyone sets off together. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I set off very, very slowly. I mean, I was running. You don't have to run it. Lots of people walk the entire thing, and nobody runs it all. I think everyone walks some of it. I probably walked about 20% of it, in sort of really soft sand or up really steep hills. But I went off very slow, and it's fantastic. You're walking along, just chatting to people. Everyone's got their name written on their chest, so everyone's chatting to everyone. And the landscapes, unless you've been to the deserts before, it's just something completely new. So all of your senses are alive because you've never been there before.
Yeah, and you're experiencing it all for the first time. So describe what you're looking at when you first set off.
So that's one of the things that's quite special about it, is each day had a really different feel to the terrain. So I'm guessing it's done like that on purpose. So we had small sand dunes, big sand dunes, dried out lake beds. We had just sort of long, stony, flat plateaus. We had hills. So the first day set off through a sort of a canyon with kind of a shale floor. So you're sort of running on stones. I mean, you're mostly running on stones the whole way.
Okay.
So sort of, good cushioned footwear is essential. But yeah, the scenery just changes each day. And you'll know that from your road book that maybe you've got 7 kilometres of a flat plateau, and then you're going to turn left onto the sand dunes or something like that, and then you'll walk through sand dunes. So you can kind of tell what's coming and follow the route.
And at any point, did you question your ability to finish?
No, I absolutely loved every single minute of it. And day 2 was really, really, really hard, and had a really high dropout around day 2. Day 2 was about 38 kilometres, and I don't think anyone was particularly fearful of the distance, but it involved quite a lot of sand dunes. It had a huge climb up a jebel called Jebel El Otfal, and it was a really long climb up kind of a stony escarpment to get to the top, and then on the way down you were running down a 20% soft sand, which was actually great fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It sounds scary.
I went quite slow, and I lost my hat, and my hat was blown up the hill, and there's no way I could have gone and got it. Like, you couldn't climb it.
Oh,
we
really?
We did climb it the next day, but we climbed it from the side with the aid of ropes.
Okay.
Fortunately, another runner sort of did a detour and picked my hat up for me.
Oh, no.
But that was tough. But I stood at the top, and I looked back at where I'd been, and I was going quite quick. And the wind had been getting stronger and stronger all day. It had been a really strong wind in your face the whole day. And it started picking up sand.
Oh, no.
And a sandstorm had blown up. And in the briefing, they said, if you get caught in a sandstorm, just like stay where you are so that you don't get lost. Don't worry, sandstorms last 20 minutes, sorry. That's it. They should last 20 minutes to half an hour. Well, this sandstorm lasted about 4 hours.
Oh no. So did that make you have to...
So everyone kept on going because you could still just about see the next marker.
I don't understand, we didn't.
Sorry.
I can explain it for Siri.
Yeah.
And for me, the sandstorm was really only bad on the last sort of 5 kilometres into the bivouac. So I ran into the bivouac, and as I was running in, my shoulders had gone into sort of spasm, I think, because I'd been using poles a lot more than I'd ever used in training, probably because of the wind. And as I got into the camp, you cross the finish line, you're given a really lovely Moroccan sweet mint tea. And then I thought, this is great, right? I'm going to go sit down in the tent. I'm going to sort my shoulders out, have a stretch, have some ibuprofen, have a recovery shake. And then it's tradition for the first person back to roll up the rug before everyone gets there and remove all the stones from underneath the rug. I got back to my tent and it was completely flat and destroyed. As were 95% of the tents in the bivouac. It was like I couldn't pick it up on myself, even if my shoulders hadn't been in so much pain.
Because it's just under so much sand at this point.
It's heavy. It's a heavy rug. It's under so much sand, and it was ripped. So there were some other competitors who'd gotten a bit before me, and I went and sat in their tent, and I sat down, and within about 3 or 4 minutes, you're just covered in a layer of sand. It's everywhere. It's in your ears. It's up your nose. It's in your hair.
This is making me feel quite anxious because I can't deal with sand. I find it really stressful. Knowing that there's not a shower that you could just pop into.
No. I mean, I was dirtier than I've ever been. Everyone was. And I tried to wash. If you're going to wash, you need to wash with your ration of water.
Yeah, so that's a gamble, isn't it? You kind of how much you want to sacrifice.
Yeah, so I mean, I saved about half a bottle of water to wash my body and clothes.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, you didn't have to do it, but you're sort of doing it for your own.
Yeah.
Well-being, and then that night trying to cook, you're trying to not like it's just you're trying not to get sand in your food, but forget it, you can't. It's everywhere.
God.
Sand is everywhere. So you sort of
So you're carrying like a little stove.
So I carried a tiny stove. It was like really tiny, just big enough to put a titanium cup on the top.
Okay.
And then you use little like hexamine fuel tablet. A lot of people don't take. They tell they're going to have cold food. For me, the morale boost was worth the wait. I reckon to carry food, it cost me 250 grams of weight.
Okay.
For the fuel and for the stove. And the cup.
Worth it?
100%.
Okay.
I had a coffee in the morning and a hot breakfast.
So what were you eating?
I was eating freeze-dried foods from a company called Expedition Foods. I thought they were really nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I might start taking them, to work with me.
Well, I've just got loads of this Huel stuff, which is kind of similar. No, not good?
Well, not for me. I mean, not a fan of the taste.
Is it? Okay. I mean, it's all vegan.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a problem.
Yeah.
I have to say, I probably had chili con carne 3 nights of the week.
Okay.
Freeze-dried chili. It was really good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, at any point, did you feel hungry?
So one of the things that everyone says to you is there's a minimum calorie requirement. You have to have a minimum of 2,000 calories a day, which isn't a lot, considering...
that's a standard for just normal life, isn't it?
So a man is probably about 2.5, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, I reckon on one of the normal days, I'm burning maybe 6,000 calories.
Wow.
Moving on top, and then you got your 2,000. So I took 2,500 calories a day. So I took a bit extra than the minimum requirement.
But you're still running a major deficit.
Absolutely. But I didn't feel hungry. And everyone says you don't tend to feel hungry. I don't know if it's the heat or just the long distances.
Okay.
But I feel like I had enough food. I probably had a little bit excess food, actually, at the end of it. The long day, which was 86.4 kilometres, I think.
Okay.
So I had a meal on that one. I actually had a vegan meal for that one because I thought it would be the only one that would taste all right without cooking it.
Okay.
As in
halfway through the distance?
So actually I'd gotten to 46k quite quickly. The long day had been really strange. Everyone was definitely quite fearful of the long day because for most part I hadn't run that far in my training. I'd done a 60k run.
Okay.
But yeah, about halfway through the day I started or maybe more than that, maybe about 46k, I started going, I'm nearly there. Like everyone was we're nearly there now.
Okay.
And I had this whole internal conversation. I was like, I don't even need to cook my food. I might just wait till I get to camp.
Just keep going.
Because I'm nearly there. And then I sort of had to have a word with myself. You're not nearly there, John. There's 30 kilometres to go of desert and sand dunes and hills. So I put the food in my bag, and actually I had a point where I was starting to crash. Had the food. 20 minutes later, I felt great again. And then
you knew you needed to refuel.
Yeah. And I put in the fastest 20k of the whole event then at the end of that day in the dark.
Really?
Yeah, and I finished the long day in 12 and a half hours.
Wow. And how long were you sort of running most days?
So it's between 4 and 5 for the other days.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, that long day, you have a time limit of 35 hours. And actually, one of the best moments was on that rest day for most of us. Or no, it's actually not a rest day for most of us. Rest day for those of us who'd finished within, like 14 hours. I think the next people back in my tent came back in about 3 a.m. So they did really well because they were walking the whole way. So they must have been walking fast.
Okay.
And then the next day, the organisers start driving around saying, guys, you need to go to the finish line. And the whole bivouac went out to the finish line to watch the last competitors come in. I think they came in about 3 or 4 o'clock the following day. So they've been out on the course since 7:30.
So good 20 odd hours.
30 odd hours. Anyway, the guy who finished last, he did so barefoot.
Oh.
The whole event barefoot.
Was this part of his training, or is this an extra challenge he wanted to...
Just something he does, apparently.
Okay.
But yeah, so the whole bivouac came out. It was quite emotional as well. And, everyone's sort of cheering this guy in.
Oh, nice. So there's a real sense of sort of team spirit.
Yeah. And I mean, very, very impressive. I talked a lot to my tent mates about it. All of them had set out to walk the event. And, they'd come back, oh, Jon, like, amazing what you did, finish that time. I said, no. I'm not working harder. If you're running, I think you're not necessarily actually working that hard. You limit your heart rate, how fast you go. I think it's much harder to be out there for so much longer, to be on your feet for so much longer.
I was thinking, because it is just the endurance of being on your feet for that length of time.
Yeah.
It's almost like
having the bag on your shoulders for that long, being on your feet for that long. So I'm not convinced that it's harder to run it. I personally think that if you can train to run, and when I say running it, it's very slow. It's like a shuffle.
Okay.
Like 6.5 minute kilometres or 6:15 per kilometre while you're running.
But you're still getting yourself to that point where you can put your feet up quicker.
Much quicker.
Right.
Much
so
quicker.
Effectively, it's a more efficient way to do the event.
Yeah, I think so. I think much easier. You don't have the bag on your shoulders. So my feet were great. I had 2 tiny blisters at the end of the whole week.
Oh, really?
On my toes, and that was mostly due to the day 3, which was lots of sort of climbing on shale and lots of rocks, and it was your feet kind of turning in your shoes.
The twists down.
Yeah. But so I looked after. I think a big key to it is preparation. So I'd done a lot of research and prepared and looked after my feet, and I had socks and blister shields.
Do you know what? Because even speaking to you before you went, I think it'd be really interesting to talk a little bit about the prep, because people will just assume that the main part of it would be the training, right? To getting the miles in and being able to get your body to a stage where you can cover the distance. But when you're talking about weighing your rucksack and the food and the water, talk us through a little bit about how you kind of get to that point. Yeah,
so you're right, actually. Training-wise, I recognise I'm getting older, so I'm 39.
Very young, Jon.
Yeah, but, you can't do what you're doing when you're in your 20s. No. So I only did 3 runs a week. I wouldn't do more than that. And that was so that I could try not to get injured, and that worked out.
Okay.
But yeah, there was lots of preparation of buying kit, and you get quite obsessive about, shaving off a gram here or 2 grams there. And I'd read a few blogs written by certainly well-meaning athletes. A couple of them were ladies who are elite level athletes.
Okay.
Right? And so their blogs had really gone into depth about how, the minimum weight of your rucksack is, I think it's 6 kilos or 6.5 kilos. I don't remember. But, they're really driving home, don't be a gram over the minimum weight. You don't want to carry it. And you get absolutely obsessive over this. And I sort of was really struggling, and then came to the realisation that, well, I'm not a 5'10" woman.
Yeah.
I'm a 6'2" man. I'm also allergic to down, so I can't have a down sleeping bag or a down jacket. So that's like 300 grams already, 400 grams.
Okay.
I need more food because I'm a man.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this realisation. And actually, when I did that, when I said, you know what, it's okay. Your bag can be heavier.
Accept that you were
as long as you can
fit into a tiny 5'10"
and if you can carry it, then that's fine. And so my bag ended up weighing on day 1 without water 8.1 kilos. Wow. And you know what, that was fine. That felt absolutely fine.
And then, do you just top up your water each kind of...
Yeah, so each checkpoint you get between 1.5 and 3 litres. Actually, water wasn't the problem for me this year. It was hot, but I didn't really need all the water I was given. And then every checkpoint...
That doesn't seem a lot.
So checkpoints are like roughly 10 kilometres apart. So like imagine drinking 1.5 litres of water every 10k.
Oh, every 10k, yeah. Okay. So how many litres do you think you took it on each day?
Oh no, I used all of my allowance of water. I probably used half a bottle to wash clothes and cooking and drinking. I just think that no, I definitely threw some out and I definitely gave some to other people.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely didn't need it all. And they give you salt tablets, and so as long as you get into a routine of taking these salt tablets, it's like two tablets every litre and a half.
Do you add them to your water?
You just
like they look...
have them like aspirin.
Oh, okay.
So my checkpoint routine, I'd come into a checkpoint. I wouldn't stop. I don't think I stopped for longer than 90 seconds in a checkpoint.
Oh, wow. So
walk into a checkpoint, grab your bottle, top up your bottles, pour the rest over your head on your clothes to cool down, and then start walking. And then I would start walking straight away. I would take my salt tablets, food if you need it, and then either carry on walking if it's soft sand or run.
Okay.
Lots of people, I'd have lots of people run past me, and then I'd go past them in the checkpoint. I wouldn't see them again. So I don't know if people are stopping for a long time.
Right.
But for me, that idea of... So I had a motto. It's a motto from a ultra runner called Dean Karnazes, which was basically run if you can, walk if you have to, and crawl if you must, but don't stop.
Okay, that's good.
I didn't have to do any crawling.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Did you see anyone do any crawling?
No, I didn't. But so that was something that's quite interesting. So stepping away slightly from the where and when of the experience, I think we talked to... I'm trying to think who we talked to. I can't remember one of our guests, but one of the things that I found happened to me was this mantra that I had: run if you can.
Yeah.
You know how you get that little devil on your shoulder, right? The one saying stop, stop, just walk, just this hurts, just stop.
Yeah, my little devil tells me to walk all
well, so do my little devil. But I'd managed to get him on my side because instead of that, he was saying, so on the long day especially, when I would be walking perhaps on actually flat, hard terrain, he'd go, "Could you run?" Okay. And then I'd go, yeah, I can. And then I'd start running again. And so I kind of had this like little devil on my shoulder. He was actually pushing me on to run cool. rather than to walk. And then I'd come to a little hill and my little devil, "Could you run?" I go, "No, I can't run. It's a hill and I'm tired." But then I get to the top and the little devil would say, "Could you run? Could you run?"
So
okay, yeah, I can.
He was just keeping you going, but not totally
it was like keeping me on my toes. It's funny. I mean, I've been out in the desert by probably 8 hours now on the fourth day of running. So like, it's funny how your brain starts
takes you to these places.
That's it. Yeah, and there was a point as well on the long day after about 45 kilometres, and I'd put some music in for the first time all week just to listen to the music, and a song came on. It was not a sentimental song, has no meaning to me, and I just started thinking of my two boys, and then I just completely welled up like out of nowhere. I wasn't deeply missing them. I'd only been away for 5 days or something, but yeah, your brain goes to funny places. And
also you're having an experience that one you've dreamed of for decades.
Yeah.
Two, prepped for a year, particularly following surgery. There might have just been a moment of, "Oh my God, I made it. Look at me."
Well, so one of the reasons that I wanted to do it as well was that I heard something on a podcast where they said that nothing you say to your kids makes the blindest bit of difference to the way they behave or act. It's the behaviours that you model.
Oh God.
Basically, monkey see, monkey do, right? Yeah. So I thought, well, I should do this, and I'm modelling these good behaviours then, right? I'm resilience and that sort of stuff. So maybe there was a realisation of that, but then that was good because it meant that, and I remember Shasta said this when we interviewed her, and we came away saying that one of the things in the toolbox was make it bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. So don't just make it about you. And so that was quite good. And I guess maybe that's why I had that feeling, is that I wasn't just doing it for me. I was doing it to display these behaviours.
Amazing.
So you've got another sort of motive.
That's great. And also what's really interesting is obviously we've been interviewing all these amazing, extraordinary people in the run-up to this event. How much do you think that, the things in our toolbox influenced how you approached your extraordinary sort of challenge?
I think I've probably managed to I've done it consciously, trying to take a little bit from everybody. So I mentioned what we took from Shasta there, and then with Jonathan and the Transcontinental, he said just make what you're doing a habit, normalise it. And I think certainly my rowing career helped with that. Mm-hmm. It's not unusual to go and do these huge amount of training, and I was doing a lot of training. I was going for running. I was running 5 hours a day, 6 days. Running 5 or 6 hours a day on a Saturday would be normal, and I wasn't thinking that this was an unusual thing to do.
Because it was just part of your.
Because it's what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Johnny was saying. Make it a habit. Just make it normal.
And also we had Andy Ibbott, who did actually tackle MDS.
he did, and he was obviously an absolute hero because he was doing it, from a really difficult starting point. And I think what we took from him was this idea of one step at a time, which perhaps ties into my sort of run if you can, walk if you have to. And what I also, you can't look at an 86 kilometre day and start counting down from 86 kilometres.
No.
Your brain really doesn't cope with that. So you just go checkpoint to checkpoint.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that you could take from it. And then I think the chatting to Rob Casselier, I remember he had, experiences as a young man that made him want to get fit, and sort of, I think that definitely my schoolboy time at our school at Gordon's with, Mr. Fox was so instrumental in shaping my attitude to these sorts of things. Like, it's never crossed my mind that this is something that I wouldn't be able to complete. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm just saying that I didn't ever think,
because of the foundations that were in play from all the things that we used to do at school.
Yeah, and also, if I take away the one thing that you would take from that man in particular, was that he just completely believed in each and every one of us and made you feel that as well. Yeah. So you take that enormous confidence, which is...
well, that's what, with Kat and Rachel, the two girls who cycled on.
Yeah.
I remember that conversation, and it was very much kind of fueled by the other's belief in the other, as opposed to this kind of real sense of self.
Yeah.
And that does make a massive it has a massive influence on how you feel, because it isn't just that you don't want to let the other person down. It gives you the confidence to think, well, yeah, I can actually.
Yeah, because they think I can.
Exactly.
And that was the same with the guys rowing around Britain as well, wasn't it? Because they had the military who were
Nick and Hamish.
Yeah, Nick and Hamish. It was a case of, he said, if you take something to the army and they think it's doable, they'll support you, and it's that gives you confidence.
Almost gives you permission. Well, they think it's doable, so
I can do it.
Yeah,
and so I think there's definitely an element of that. I think I'm obviously quite suited to this sort of event. I think as you get older, your endurance gets better. I'm also tall and skinny. This helps, right?
Stop showing off.
I've got normal feet as well. I think the biggest thing that influences whether or not you get really bad blisters is the shape of your feet.
Really?
I think so.
Just how it works in shoes?
I think so. Looking at the guy, I saw some horrific blisters in the week and they have this tent called Doc Trotters, and you go to the tent and it's like a assembly line of foot popping and foot strapping,
Did anyone get to the stage of injury where they weren't able to go on?
I mean, absolutely. This year, despite being relatively cool temperatures, had quite a high dropout rate. I think the dropout rate was about 11% of those who were able to get there not having had COVID. I think 60 or so people had positive COVID tests
at arrival,
so couldn't even go.
Devastating.
Yeah, devastating, absolutely. And then about 11% dropout rate, which is quite high. I think most of those were on that day too, with the sandstorms and the really tough.
And it just pushed people over the edge.
And I think blisters. I did see some horrific blisters. A chap in my tent really struggled with. I don't know if it was the heat and difficulty of day 2 combined with the fact that he couldn't really keep his food down. Salt tablets weren't going. By the end of it, he looked absolutely shocking. And that is one of the inspiring things about the event, is that you see someone walk in or stagger in, to the tent right at the cut-off time, and you think there's no way that he's getting up tomorrow. And doing it again, or doing twice that distance, and then they get up and they do it, and then they get up the next day and they do it again, and it's quite inspiring.
But for those, because I'm getting the real sense that you had a great time.
I loved it.
So for some people, obviously they're covering the same ground, they're following in your footsteps, they're doing the same event. Doesn't seem like it is as enjoyable.
No, and the race has the tagline, the toughest foot race on earth, and it would be easy for me to go, oh, well, I had a great time. It's definitely not the toughest foot race on earth. And I think that's really unfair. It could easily have gone a different way for me. I think I was lucky.
Yeah.
I think I trained well, but I just think I was quite lucky. I didn't get any nasty blisters. I didn't get an injury. I didn't twist my ankle. I didn't fall over.
Okay. And these are all tiny little
and I think
eventualities that could have really taken you in another direction.
Yeah, like I didn't get any chafing from a backpack.
Okay.
But I think it could easily have gone a different way. And I think it's those people who you can see are having a tough time and who just keep getting back up.
And they do it.
Yeah, and they do it. It's it's very, very inspiring.
So out of the sort of 8 guys in your tent, how many finished on the same sort of wavelength as you, as that was amazing, I loved every second, and how many said that was horrible, but I've done it?
I think maybe, I think, do you know what? I think everyone probably finished thinking that was great. Okay. I think maybe a couple of the guys had a harder time of it with things like blisters or the heat exhaustion and stuff like that. Everyone finished, which is very impressive, and everyone finished a good time. They did really well. So have you heard about the types of fun? So type 1 fun, type 2 fun, all that sort of thing?
Elaborate.
Okay, so type 1 fun is fun when you're doing it. It's like jumping around a bouncy castle, right? Okay, fun. Type 2 fun is like going for a run, I guess, for a lot of people. It's not fun while you're doing it, but afterwards...
Yeah, you're always glad that you think back on it fondly.
Exactly. And those were what I thought were just the types of fun. And one of the gentlemen in the tent told us about type 3 fun, which is not fun while you're doing it or fun afterwards, but it's where the stories are made.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I wonder if for a couple of my tent mates who perhaps didn't enjoy the whole thing as much, they type 3 fun, and there's definitely some stories
and they're
that
just
they made.
Thinking, I'm going to talk about this.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said one of the biggest influences was kind of the, doing it for your boys, and setting an example and being a sort of inspiration for them.
Yeah. What's
been their take on it since you've been home?
So, to begin with, definitely very, very proud, So they actually went on holiday in Morocco at the same time.
And do they understand how big of a deal this event is?
I think so. Certainly, I think so. So they were tracking, you could track me, they were tracking my dot, which showed my current speed. So while they were on holiday, they were in the gym on a treadmill, putting the treadmill to the speed that I was going. Yeah, so I think they were dead proud. I think that that has worn off somewhat. And now, when I say to them, when I was in the desert, they sort of go, "Oh my God, we know you did it, we know." Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Do you think either of them would tackle it when they?
I think both of them will do something, and I'll be there with them. That's I'll definitely do that. There's my big takeaway from the event, right? And lots of people, I've heard other people talk about it, and they say, "Oh yeah, it was life changing. I came out a different person." And I don't feel like I came out of a different person, but I definitely have a takeaway that I'll use in my life. And so there was a point where I was running along one of these flat plateaus, and it's just mile upon mile of flatness, of like tiny stones on the floor and sort of bigger rocks around. And so you're running along, and all you're seeing is this tiny area in front of your feet. You're just looking, you just don't want to twist your ankle, right? You know what it's like, and that's all you're looking. And this would happen frequently throughout the event, that every now and then you would look up and go, wow, or like, oh my God, because of what you were seeing, of where you were, the realization, I'm in the middle of the Sahara. Like, I'm lucky enough, I'm fit enough, I'm healthy enough, I'm rich enough.
Yeah, it's a privilege.
That I can get the time of work that I'm in this place, and this is amazing. And then you look around and just you'd see the cliffs over here, and so the thing I've taken away from it is to look up.
Oh, okay, I like that.
Yeah. So I've had it at work where I'm tired, and then I've thought, actually, and I've looked up, and I've got a really cool job. I fly airplanes. I'm looking around like, this is really cool. And maybe you're with your kids in the garden, but you've got other things you need to be doing, and you're like, oh God, when's this game over so I can go to the things I need to do? Well, look up, and that's kind of the thing that I think I've taken away from it every now and then, is even if you're thinking, oh God, it's just so boring, or I'm really tired, just look up for a minute.
So it's almost just like take stock, step back, look at what it is. And
I guess maybe it's
great.
Maybe it's mindfulness that people are always talking about, but that's harder for me to.
Well, I think when it comes to mindfulness, isn't it? There's so many different ways that you can interpret it in your own way. But if that is for you, the way that you find contentment in the moment, that's brilliant. I like that.
That's definitely my takeaway.
And how much are you applying it in your daily life?
I think I'm applying it quite a bit. At least once a week, something's happening where I'm sort of reminding myself just to look up for a minute.
Good for you.
I highly recommend everyone goes and does this event, by the way. It was amazing. I loved it so much. Yeah.
So because you've always been super fit, a runner. I am neither of those things. So let's just say for someone like me who wanted to tackle it, would you recommend I try to get my running up to speed to get it over and done with quicker? Or do you think
that's a good question.
crack on and make it a walk? Having just done the Isle of Wight this weekend, that was a walk that started off amazing, but the last few hours, and I don't think it's anything to do with distance. As you said before, I think my body gets to a point where when you're on your feet and you're carrying stuff and you're just plodding on for X number of hours, it was just tough.
So I spent most of my time obviously you end up meeting the people around you who are going the similar sort of pace as you. So I didn't really spend much time with the hardcore walkers. So most of the people I was spending with were alternating, so I ended up chatting to a guy from London called Alex, or a girl from who lived in Amsterdam called Olive, and we'd all be walking, running at various different times, and we'd kind of leapfrog past each other. I would recommend definitely running to the point where you can run for 3k, walk for a couple of k, run for 3k.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely
run
I think
if you can.
Run if you can. Walk if you need to.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I feel like you can apply that to almost everything.
Yeah, that's very true, actually, isn't it? Yeah, anything you're doing.
Run if you can, walk if you need to.
Yeah, and I wouldn't chastise myself for walking. I feel like my goals for the event were, in this order: finish, and then give a good account of myself. So I didn't set a target position, and I definitely achieved the first one I finished. And I think I gave a good account of myself, although I still have a nagging thing that maybe I could have gone a bit quicker.
Do you think, regardless to when you finish, you would put that on yourself a little bit because of your personality?
Yeah, I think so. And I was dead happy where I finished. The long day I finished 75th out of 906 starters.
Come on, that's incredible.
And I never thought that would happen. And it wasn't a goal. I didn't set out and go, I want to finish top 100.
Where did the 85-year-old Italian finish?
I don't know. He wasn't last. I know that.
I mean, that's inspiration.
He's done it about 6 times, I think.
Okay, and so he's a regular.
And he stood up at he got called up to the podium as the oldest finisher. And they said, what's your secret? And he said, just keep doing sport.
Oh, great.
That's
so
his secret.
Keep it.
Yeah.
Keep active.
Going. Yeah.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yes. Yeah. Very proud of myself.
I think that's all you want. When I think about what I want for my children, I just want them to feel proud of themselves. And they don't have to do a crazy marathon across the desert to do that. Yeah. But, just to have done something that makes you feel proud.
Something hard, right? And it doesn't have to be, it's hard for you. It's relative.
Yeah, exactly. All relative.
Yeah. For me, I found a couple of days that in my training was much harder than the event itself. And that's because the event has the people, the place.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And you're there, you're doing it, you've got over that hurdle. The training's kind of...
Whereas setting off I did a 60k run in training, and setting off on that's like, you're by yourself.
Yeah, it was a long old slog.
Yeah. So, I found the training hard. So I'm probably, if I look back at it, I'm actually more proud of how I prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I'm proud of myself. Yeah. And I wrote a training plan and I stuck to it, and...
Where did you find the discipline to keep? Because it's so easy to slack off with training. But you're busy, you're a pilot, you've got a wife, you've got kids. Yeah.
I have a very understanding wife who recognised that you can't go and do something like this without having done the training. Yeah. So that helped. I think discipline is really important in training. So what I did, here's a great tip. And I read this off of, I think I saw a post by Pete Reed, who is a Olympic rower. Who actually suffered a spinal stroke. So he's been hugely inspirational in his rehab, and he has been treating his rehab like an Olympic rower treats training plan. And one of the things he does, which I did, was I wrote my training plan out on paper and I put it up on the fridge. Okay. And if you're not going to do a session, you just have to write down why.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
On the schedule or just in general?
No, on the schedule, so leave a bit of space. Okay. So I had a few days where I had a session, that I couldn't do, and I would write on it. And if you're writing... I set off to do a half marathon on a treadmill. I got to 3k and I couldn't do it. I was exhausted.
Okay.
I wrote down...
Too tired.
Yeah, too tired. I'm exhausted. And that's fine, right? Because you need to listen to your body.
Yeah, and you're giving yourself permission.
Yep. If you're writing on there, can't be asked...
Going to the pub.
Yeah, you're probably not going to write that. And I think that keeps you honest.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be for anyone else.
It's holding yourself accountable, isn't it? That's really important.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be for anyone else. It can just be for you.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's one thing. For me, actually, the thing that I'm probably more impressed with, I am not an organised person.
You are?
No. My wife will attest to the fact that if something needs organising, it's probably better that she does it than me. I'm not super organised.
I would like to organise my life.
I am very much motivated by deadlines, I'd say, usually.
Okay.
And I was super impressed with the fact that I was organised. And I think I had to be because no one else is going to do it for me, you know. Sort of.
And was it nice to take ownership of something? Because, you know, as any family dynamic, you know, your wife will take charge of this sort of pocket of your life. And this was yours to own, to organise, to kind of train for. Was it kind of, in a way, a nice little
I found it quite stressful, actually, like organising the food and kit. And like I say, going through that thing of reading, you know, your bag must weigh this, and then trying to give yourself permission that that's rubbish, I don't need to do that for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I certainly think that the time spent was well spent. I had all the kit that I needed. I had all the food that I needed. The kit worked well. I mean, there were guys in my tent whose bags had, it's no fault of their own, but their bags by day 2 had started ripping.
How?
Unfortunately, Rory with the sewing needle and silk and super glue was there to fix everything for everybody.
Rory saves the day.
So Rory's going to come on every future expedition with me with his sewing kit. I've got to tell you something else. So on the rest day you get given a can of Coke, which is the first chilled drink you have in the whole thing. That's the only time they give you anything. So the 3 sappers, the ex-Royal Engineers, had carried with them a small bottle of rum and a bottle of red wine.
The whole way round?
Yeah, exactly. And so on the rest day, and I'd taken with me a packet of pork scratchings, which had been earmarked to be my treat on the long day, because you crave salt and fat, because fat's your major fuel source. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to save this for the rest. And then on the rest day, we had our Coca-Colas with some rum in it. So they shared the rum around, which was lovely of them. You know, they brought it for the 3 of them, but they shared it around the tent. And then I shared around my pork scratchings. So we had like a little mini British pub.
Yeah.
With some of the guys had the red wine.
You did 5 days in a row, a rest day, then the 6th day was...
So, 4 days. Yeah. And then the 5th day, if you finish the 4th day, is a rest day.
Yeah.
And then the 6th day is the marathon day. And then actually you do walk on the 7th day. You do 8 kilometres, but it's a charity stage. And it's not timed.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so I walked that with my tent and chatted.
Right, okay.
And it's in
so
beautiful...
there is essentially a day where you just are there to chill out?
Yes. Yeah.
In the middle of the desert?
Yeah, through sand dunes. The highest sand dunes in Morocco.
Wowzers.
Yeah, which is very beautiful. But actually, by that stage, most people are ready to go to the hotel. You think that when you get to the hotel, I'm just going to have a cold beer. But actually, everyone just wants a shower.
Oh, I just want a shower.
And fresh fruit and veg.
Yeah, because your body's pretty craving that sort of food.
Yeah, so we all piled into the buffet and just bypassed the meat and just went straight for,
fresh
beans, pulses, lettuce, tomatoes.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That's how I feel like after Glastonbury, which I still consider an endurance event. So, Jon, as you well know, we ask everyone about the pit and the peak, so the highest moment of the whole event and the lowest moment. Have you got those? Okay,
this is really, really, really difficult because I genuinely loved every minute of it. I'd say the lowest moment is probably arriving at the tent on that sandstorm to just a destroyed tent. And it wasn't also because I couldn't get in the tent. It was also because I didn't want to let my tent mates down with the sort of having the tent ready and getting all the stones up. And I mean, I let them down horribly. I had to wait until the 3 engineers got back. And then I had the colonel directing us, on how we're going to rebuild this tent. I got it partly back up. I got the Berbers to come help me, but that was probably the pit. And if not that, it was night times. It was very hard to sleep. I didn't feel tired during the day at any point, but I definitely didn't sleep much.
Okay.
Peak. I think the peak was sunset on the long day. Running along with the sunset in the desert, knowing that I'd absolutely nailed it. Like, I really didn't think I'd go that fast. I probably had, an hour and a half to go. I was feeling great and going really fast, and just had one of those moments where you're running and you just feel. You've got the euphoric kind of endorphins. Yeah, runner's high, maybe they call it, I suppose. Yeah, that was definitely a peak. Finishing was nice, but actually finishing is a little bit bittersweet because this amazing experience is finished.
God, okay, that's amazing. Yeah. What do you get, a medal?
Get a medal, yeah. Medal and another can of Coke.
No rum at the end, though.
No rum at the end. No, we drank all the rum. Yeah.
Was it cold, the can of Coke at the end?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Chilled drink was quite special, actually.
Oh God, I
Yeah.
can imagine. That'd be a dream. Amazing. So, what I'm taking from this is look up.
Look up.
That's
Yeah.
gone into the toolkit. I really like that, actually.
Yeah.
And it's not just one for applying to extraordinariness.
No.
That
Yeah,
can go
anything.
into life.
Yeah.
Run if you can. Walk if you
Walk
need
if
to.
you need to.
Crawl.
Crawl. I read that somewhere. Someone else had written that on a blog. Crawl if you must. To be honest, I ended up dropping that bit in the race because I thought I'm not going to crawl. But run if you.
I think I'm going to apply that to most nights out now.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. But you should do it, and everyone should do it. Just begin. Just enter.
Oh, John.
Yeah. You should go do
That's
it.
pressure. I need you to tell me that I can, so I can believe that I can. I'm not sure, but perhaps one day.
That's it for season 1 of Extraordinariness. We're already working on season 2, so if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss us when we come back. If you know any ordinary people who have extraordinary stories to tell, get in touch with us through our website, extraordinariness.co.uk. The show was produced and hosted by Joanne Spence and myself, Jon Harman, with music by Coma Media from pixabay.com. And a big thank you to all of our guests this season, as the show wouldn't exist without them.